Well, hello everyone. As I said, I was planning to do more of these recently, and I'm glad to be here. Today I will be reading The Grim Congregation, chapter The Conversion Bureau, The Final Moments. Celestia stood on a cloud situated just above a large field. The field was scorched, dead weeds and grass blemishing what should be verdant meadow. But that would not be for long. The encroaching magical barrier was close enough to be seen from all sides, slowly crawling over the land and transforming anything it touched into something of pure beauty. But she and the other ponies were not here to watch the plant life change. They were all here for the field's animal inhabitants. Humans crowded together in the center of the grassy valley, huddling against one another in a futile attempt to block out the finality of the situation they were in. The magic of Equestria was unfortunately lethal to humans. Anything else it touched would immediately be purified and enhanced, but humans were a special case. Their corrupted minds were incompatible with harmony, meaning that the magical force of it would shred their very essences to nothing more than dust. A few humans were able to look Celestia in the eye. Most of them stared with wide-eyed fear, begging her to stop the wall. She couldn't, even if she wanted to. A few were brave enough to look at her with unmasked hatred, blaming her personally for everything that had happened to them. She truly pitied all the poor creatures. Why couldn't they just accept that she wanted to save them? A long lifetime of true happiness awaited any creature that would go so far as to accept her love. The humans shivered as a mass, muttering pointless assurances to themselves that everything was just a bad dream, that they only needed to wake up. A few children could be heard crying, bawling that they didn't want to die. She felt compassion for the terrified humans, but she was here to ensure that not a single life would be lost. The ruler of Equestria cleared her pristine throat, readying herself to address the last remaining vestiges of the once nefarious species. "People of Earth," Celestia called to the throng, "please do not cower. I bring you a final chance to save yourselves. All you have to do is come to me. Allow yourself to be cleansed of the evil that grips your being. I do not wish for any being to suffer. Please, allow us to help you." Every eye turned to meet hers. Upon seeing the sincerity in her, a flock of the remaining humans broke away from the pack and made their way to meet ponies. A few children left their parents, running to save themselves from their doom-stated species. Those that were brave enough to see the light were quickly converted, greeted, and shepherded into the equestrian territory. The large majority of humans, however, started yelling obscene comments at the princess. They cursed her for her perceived xenophobia, calling out empty threats and gesturing madly. The humans continued this for a while, before all growing silent again. They fell back into their despair, huddled together for safety. "Should we begin the mandatory conversion, Your Majesty?" came a gruff question from beside the regal Alicorn. Celestia turned her head to look at the pony in question. He was Flighty Feet, an ex-human who had quickly joined the royal guard after his conversion. His gray coat and wings bristled in anticipation as his liege considered his words. "No, Flighty. I want as many voluntary conversions as possible. We should wait for a few more minutes." "Of course, Your Highness," Flighty responded. "By your orders." The two ponies turned back to the depressing collection of people before them, watching their sorrow in silence. They both felt empathy for them, but this was a necessary unpleasantness. If the humans were to be saved from themselves, a few of the adults began crying with the remaining children, despair having finally become too much for them. Some humans began banding together, clasping their hands, bowing their heads, and praying to their gods for salvation. It was all for naught. Over the course of the next half hour, several more humans gave up, and they walked over to the waiting ponies and allowed themselves to be cleansed. Every human that had seen the light was immediately welcomed to Equestria with open hooves. They were taken away to be integrated into a harmonious society. Celestia again cleared her throat, ready to offer conversion again. But a soft voice stopped her, a quiet, quivering voice that was just barely audible over the din of the other humans. The voice came from a singular source. A young woman stood among the others. Just as the princess had barely noticed her, so too had many humans not noticed. The woman was singing, looking around to her fellows for support. Celestia could barely hear her words. The woman began singing of imagination, rejecting religion. She gazed around her, trying to get others to sing with her. She gained a few cursory glances from the other humans, but not much more. Her soft voice was barely enough to inspire silence in some of them. Unbaited, the woman continued to sing. No heaven or hell? I thought humans cherished their myths, Celestia thought, now fully intrigued by the unfolding events. The woman continued on, singing of a world without conflict or war. The humans around her merely ignored her. Her confidence was waning. Her words seemed to fall into gloom. Celestia had to congratulate this woman on her morals, but she knew that humans would never be able to accomplish these goals without her intervention. Just as the woman's voice began to die, a man stood and joined. The woman looked thankfully at the man as they both encouraged others to sing. The duo sang in unison. They sang about peace and how the ideal was not unreachable. Celestia almost laughed aloud at the concept. Humans were far too chaotic to truly find peace on their own. More voices were beginning to sing. The song was now gaining more support. 10 humans sang in tandem, all encouraging the others to join. The human chorus sang about the end of greed, famine, and the prevail of unity. Celestia was now beginning to grow annoyed at the humans' repeated silliness. You can't have peace as you are now. That's why I am here, she thought. But the humans continued. Now nearly half of the congregation sang, their voices echoing through the valley. Celestia heard muttering coming from beside her, and looked at Fighting Feet mouthing along. They sang a final reprieve of the union of humanity, their voices lifting their downtrodden spirits. Live as one? But how without help? The princess asked herself. The song ended, the people all clamoring to embrace one another. They all laughed and cheered, holding each other in friendship. Celestia saw, but she could not believe. Harmony was by nature opposed to humans. There had to be something else at play here. The princess turned to her companion. Flighty, begin the mandatory conversion. The Pegasus Newfold jumped, startled out of a stupor. He looked at Celestia and saluted. Of course, Your Majesty. The guard replied, by your orders. He turned to the other guards, calling out the order. As they all rallied, the princess thought to herself. She was barely even aware of the humans' clamor. Some begged to be spared, others challenged. Some merely stood and accepted their fate. As the final humans were converted, Celestia felt something long overdue and far too late. For the first time since she began the cleansing of humans, Celestia felt doubt. I hope you enjoyed that. It was, excuse me if I mispronounced the name, by Gnarly Poax III. Great story, quite short. I feel it was enjoyable. Thank you all for listening, and have a good night.